up his sleeve. So I really think we're in for a fun series, and I'm glad that you are as excited for this one as I am.
This is going to be good, I think. And in the bottom left, man with all the builds. He's playing for Twisted Minds. It's YoungYakov.
In the top right side of Solaris, we are looking at the main base of that beautiful German Protoss player. It is not D Mauer. This is Little Fairy's Showtime. Excuse me, ForJumy. That's what I get for thinking of D Mauer. Oh, yeah.
Hey, look, Roddy, it's time for ForJumy to put on a show. It's his showtime.
I can live with that.
I love the Chinese teams, though. Like, we've got Starlight Twinkle. We've got Little Fairy. And the logo for Little Fairy, you know, we have all these like really graphic art. The Twisted Minds, right? Is this this Arabic style twisted? I assume it looks like a brain, but I think it's also probably going to be Arabic for it. It kind of looks like maybe. We have all these fancy things, and then Little Fairy. I mean, the logo looks like just someone drew it on a piece of paper and made a cutout. It's just very different and sparks a little joy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a team name that stands out there. Not something that I ever thought we'd be talking about when we're casting StarCraft 2 or just watching video games, Little Fairies, but I thought I left that part of my life behind, you know. In Warcraft 3, Night Elf, okay, I can understand that we're going to talk about a fairy every now and then, but in StarCraft, sci-fi, didn't think it was going to happen, yet here we are in the year 2023.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've certainly had, I think, even odder team names. There was the Love Your Girlfriend for a while, but that one ended ignominiously. As YoungYakov, you know, we talked about this, Roddy, about how he's solid in the mid game, solid in the late game, but it looks like that's something where he's veering closer towards. But I think of YoungYakov, I think of Ling Floods and proxies and things like that, kind of out of this school of Bly of what Wayne used to be. We're not seeing this game one. That being said, though, a couple Lings, they're going to find their way into the natural. And even if this doesn't get a drone because the Adept pops out in time, that's mining time lost. It's a full scout of the main base here. Nice moves early for the Twisted Minds Zerg.
It could also have a lot to do with the kind of opponent he has, right? Maybe where if YoungYakov goes up against Protoss players that are around his level as drones are dying to, I guess, a single Adept is what it was. Yeah, the Adept did fall. Well, one Adept for 2 drones is a trade that I'll gladly take as a Protoss player, but it could have a lot to do with the strength of the opponent that YoungYakov faces. If he goes up against Protoss players that are his level, or even things are a little bit worse than him, then we'll see him sit back. We'll see him embrace the macro game. We'll see him go into quick hives and make magic happen with lurkers and Lord knows what else. But if he goes up against Protoss players that are in general considered to be a little bit stronger than him, think of the likes of a Hearthstone, for instance, that's where he dials up the aggression and he tries to get the job done with some of these Nidus builds that we've seen come out of him time and time again.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll buy that one. So as we move on here, not only, by the way, just going back a little second, talking about the Adepts and things, not only was it 2 dead drones, it was also 2 Spore cancels, so even more. And now, does this Oracle get anything? We got Queens at the 3rd, Roddy. Spore not done yet. 2 Queens in the main as well, and no drones at the natural. So yeah, for now, ForJumy, this first Oracle's not going to get a lot done. And, you know, Roddy, I know you're a little bit more familiar with ForJumy lately than I am. We're seeing the first Oracle done, second one on the way. Is ForJumy going to be the scion of the... We can't call it hero style anymore. It's evolved past that, but this Oracle into Blinkstalker type of pressure, maybe move something there. Is he going to be more Oracle into maybe a Colossus type idea? Like, wait... When we talk about ForJumy, where do you expect him to go into this series?
I think the Twilight, and then we're gonna add some Immortals. Whoa, that is an adventurous Oracle movement, my friend. That is not the right way to send them home. Almost felt that he saw something on his minimap and he just clicked them back. Because if he would have just continued flying the way he was flying, that would not have happened. And against a man like YoungYakov, who can be very aggressive in the mid-game as well, and it doesn't always have to be a Nidus. We see Overlord speed on the production tab, and I really don't think that is to scout. I think there's a very good chance that we're going to bring a couple of Queens to the other side of the map, and then losing an Oracle is painful. But yeah, the TLDR of your question is that I'm expecting a couple of Blinkstalkers with +1, and then we're going to try to make Immortals. But I think that YoungYakov is going to be in his face before the first Immortal even sees the light of day.
Yeah, the interesting thing when we talk about this as well is now with the recent changes, and I guess just because we've been seeing Stargate openers so often over the last a year and a half now, 2 years, pretty much since the, well, not even the last balance patch before then. We're starting to see in like the last month or so with this new balance patch, we're seeing a lot of queen drops all over, a lot of German taxi style builds all of a sudden. So 4 queens and a dropper lord here. Serral's doing it, ForJumy's doing it, Dark's doing it. We saw other players do it here. Now Lings are gonna get into the natural here as well. It's gonna force a recall, and that's less energy for defense later on. Oracles, they're back home. But we need to see stasis traps. We need to see that defense getting ready, and ForJumy hasn't seen this. Until right now, he won't know that this attack is happening. So the queens drop in the front, creep going down, and well, ForJumy doesn't have a lot to defend this. He's got an immortal that he's gonna chrono out, but it's 4 stalkers. It's a cannon. There's not a lot here, Roddy.
No, and if that pylon dies, by the way, we are in a lot of trouble immediately. If I was YoungYakov, I would absolutely go for that pylon. Great force field by Jumy. I mean, battery overcharge, cannon, force field doing its thing. Need to heal up your pylon, is healing up the pylon, but unfortunately the pylon does fall. And that means that battery overcharge is no longer up and running. We do have one immortal in the mix now, but that immortal really has his work cut out for himself. He is absolutely doing his best. The queens are kind of blocking all the extra units of YoungYakov, making their way through. And YoungYakov definitely needs to do a little bit more than he's been doing so far. And I think that will happen, but now the cannon is back online. The battery is doing its thing. I mean, Jumy, for how little he had to start this all off with, I think has done a good job. But I'm afraid that the final few Ravages are going to be a little bit too problematic. But here is Immortal number 2. Do we start believing that Jumy can keep these Immortals alive and can really turn this into a hold? It's close what Immortal does finally fall. And now the second Immortal falls as well. And the Lings are going to be the biggest problem of all of these Zerg units.
Yeah, I guess, you know, Roddy, I guess this is not actually an Immortal in this game. This is your Immortal cosplay that we're seeing right now. So 13 probes go down for Jumy at this point. There's not a lot left. I was starting to believe as the cannons came back online, the shield batteries came back online, the files hit the Immortals, and they took too much damage. And ForJumy just didn't see this in time. Game 1 goes the way of YoungYakov.
Maybe if we had a backup pylon immediately, right? So it didn't all come down to that first pylon. If you have one more pylon there, because I was really impressed by how well Jumy was doing. I do think YoungYakov assisted him a little bit in looking great there, because it's nice for the queens to soak up some of the cannon shots and some of the immortal shots, because it takes an immortal just freaking forever to kill a single queen. But at one point, these queens were just stuck there in the choke point, and yet all the Lings like trying to derp through. The roaches were not really able to participate in the fight. And it started to look promising for like half a second. Yeah, once the 2 immortals went down, it was just a bit too much. And don't forget that overcharge now also was unpowered for, I think, 40% of its duration. Imagine if that overcharge would have been there all along. Like, it could have made a difference. Never, ever just have one pylon powering your stuff, BO. I thought we knew.
You know, 13 years into the life of StarCraft, we still haven't learned that, apparently. The other thing, of course, to talk about YoungYakov maybe making things a little bit easier for ForJumy than they should have been. On the first attack, there was one Ravager Cocoon that was blocked. Apparently, one Ravager Cocoon blocks off the ramp onto the lower side, not even into the main base or into the natural, but one Ravager Cocoon was preventing all the roaches from joining the fight as well. So it was only like half the army. Lots of things in ForJumy's favor, but still not quite enough. And we get to see now.
And that Oracle loss early on, that was really unnecessary. Like, if you lose an Oracle on top of a Spore, but you're still killing 6 drones, you're like, oh, okay, it's never nice to lose an Oracle, but we can live with it. But these Oracles were kind of out of harm's way already. They were just floating, and they had a perfectly safe path towards the north. But then I think he saw something on his mini-map, and I think he just clicked them back. I don't think it was F2. I just think he made an accidental click with his Oracles. And then they flew over all these queens, and losing one of those expensive units when your opponent is going to be that committed to his early mid-game aggression is really painful, because it makes a night and day difference. Because this was also not one of these, oh, it's 8 queens, right? It's only 4 queens. So if you then have a couple of Oracles with energy, battery overcharge support, you can absolutely get on top of that really quick. Bloody shame for Jumy, but nice game by YoungYakov.
That it was, and now he's up 1 game in this series in the bottom left for Twisted Minds again. It's YoungYakov.
Is that a gold base that I am looking at? Oh my, oh my. We're gonna do weird stuff over here, and I like it. In the top right side, we're gonna try it again, Bio. I will be stubborn. We're looking at the main base of a German Protoss. It is not D Mauer. It is little fairies for ForJumy.
easy for Jumi. Well,
this, by the way, sorry to cut you off there real quick, but this is very annoying if I was Jumi, because now you see, okay, no hatchery in the natural, no hatchery at the third. At this point, I would be worried about proxy hatch. But will Jumi think of the gold bases that are on this map? I'd be kind of scared immediately, be like, oh my goodness, am I getting cheesed? He's gonna check the left side of the map as well. Technically, he doesn't know 100% yet, but since he's not really panicking at home, it seems that he is already thinking about this potentially just being a gold base expand. Sees a couple of drones leave right now. Now I'd be very concerned, because imagine if there was a hatchery near your natural, and these drones are going to start building spine crawlers there, but it is not the case. I guess Jumi just knew. I'm taking a look at his camera, and he's now going to check the gold. So good job there by Jumi, not panicking, because I'll be honest, Bio, unless a man or a woman would have absolutely panicked there.
Yeah, I'm curious to know whether ForJumy just clicked on the right side of the map anywhere as the scouting probe went across, because this is something that is simultaneously kind of hard to scout because it's on the other side of the wall, but also kind of easy. Because if just the way probe pathing works, if the you don't even have to see it. If the minerals get mined out here and suddenly that path is open, you click on the right side, your probe is going to actually path onto that right side because it knows where the gap is, even if you personally haven't scouted it. Whereas if you don't do that, if you click over there, it's going to path a little bit differently. It's just going to take you to the wall at the nearest spot and get stuck. So for Jumi, there's a kind of a reasonable possibility where he went and just clicked on the other side, saw that, yeah, okay, my probe would path there, so it's probably going to be a gold, something like that, a proxy base, but not the type of proxy hats where I really have to be worried at the moment, and you go from there. But the Adepts, they're trying to be annoying, and for now, there are two holes in the wall. The Lings get in again, Roddy.
Yep, now we have at least one Adept here, so it shouldn't be too painful. Single probe falls. If Jumi can keep it at a single probe, he should be able to live with that. Losing 2 probes and a bit of lost mining time is obviously not what he's looking for, especially now because his opponent does have the hands on a gold very early on. At least it's not Equilibrium, and it's not a gold base with a rich Vespian geyser, but still scary, especially against a man like YoungYakov, who loves the Queen Ling Nidus all in, and he's especially with a gold, right? You can build more queens, you can build more links. Scary game for Jumi, but technically there's no reason to panic yet. Things are not looking too bad for him, and maybe the Oracle can find some damage, or the bare minimum, let's keep that Oracle alive, shall we?
Yeah, and you know, Roddy, talking about this pressure, the amount of queens that you can make, it makes sense. You know, I wasn't alive in the 1300s, but I've read some books, and one thing that they kind of point out here is royalty, queens in particular, they love gold. So it makes total sense here that any sort of queenling pressure is that much more likely. Now, YoungYakov, he's not pushing the creep onto the other side of the map for like a really big timing. He's trying to connect his natural and the third. So it seems like for the moment, anything he goes for is not going to be that crazy Ling Queen Nidus type thing. In fact, there's a Baneling nest on the way.
Yeah, well, that's good news for YoungYakov for multiple reasons. A, he could be aggressive and he could pull what we like to call the dark ride, where you just rally a couple of queens to the other side of the map and you attack with Ling Bane. Every single time I see these queens starting their march, I'm like, this doesn't look that good. And then Dark is like, oh yeah, you nerd, and then he kills a bunch of probes at third base and he wins the game. You're like, oh, I guess it is very good. But the second reason why it's good news for YoungYakov is because he really needs it, since Jumi is investing in resonating glaives. So it's Oracle into glaives. And if you would only have Lings and Queens, that is very scary. Now, Banelings are not as reliable as Roaches, but what they can do is have the absolute slam dunk victory against a bunch of glaives if they are clumped up. There's also a chance that Jumius is not going to be aggressive at all with glaives, and he was just using it in case YoungYakov wanted to link flood his third base over and over again. We'll just keep an eye on it. Funny game right now, because both of them, oh, Jumi is going to move out. In a weird way, I almost wishes that he doesn't move out, Bio.
Yeah, so he's seen the Banelings. Actually, I like this position, just holding the Zelnaga tower. That's not a spot Banelings would get a good connection in. The choke is insane. But moving on to this side of the map, I mean, that's just hard. Oracles, they're going to try to snipe a couple here, but Queens, they run forward. They deny that for now. And now the Banelings looking for the surround here. Ling's only going to do it for right now. Now the Banelings a little out of position. 2 will get pretty solid connections right there, but you got to find more Lings now on the surround here. This is... ForJumy knew about this. He saw this. He had the scout, and he still commits. And he loses everything, Roddy.
Painful. That is definitely not what you want to see happen to your adepts when you make that many of them. We had 10 in total. And now it's going to be hard to defend. Don't forget that he also used Pulsar Beam a couple of times on the other side of the map, right? To gun down a few of these Banes. Real shame, because it didn't look that shabby for ForJumy, and I love what you mentioned about the Zelnaga Watchtower. You can have like a single adept on hold position, and it's almost impossible for Banelings to get good connections. Now it is very possible. We have 4 Banelings. Are they going to try to connect with the shield battery at first? They're going to go for the adept and the battery at the same time, and all of Jumy's adepts are 1 hit away from dying. The oracles are going to run out of energy. I love that warp in behind the mineral line, but I think this was already a good trade for YoungYakov. Especially with the amount of minerals that he's currently sitting on.
Yeah, I mean, good news for ForJumy, though. It was only 2 probes going down. That could have been so much worse. All right, you lose the adepts. Certainly that would be bad. You lose the shield battery. That's not great, but that very easily could have been a dead mineral line as well. So ForJumy holds on kind of as well as can be expected in the situation that he's in. And now we got Colossus on the way, Blink on the way, +1. If ForJumy can get up to like 3 or 4 Colossus and he gets extended thermal lance, maybe gets stalkers in front, this army that his opponent has, he's got a couple roaches on the way right now, but it's primarily Lings, Roddy. Lings don't do that great against Colossus. Light units, lasers. Maybe that's...
They don't, but a couple roaches often turns into a lot of roaches very quickly, especially if the Zerg is on 4 bases, has access to gold minerals. And I was going to say the biggest problem is that a Colossus is great, but if you don't have Immortals to deal with the roaches, a Colossus is really going to struggle. Because I love Colossi in general, and I think they're still a bit underrated, especially in these like early mid-game phases. I'm like, yeah, I can see it shine. As Jumy loses one of his oracles, that's a bit painful too. I think Jumy has a good read on the game, and he realizes that YoungYakov is just going to continue to be aggressive in this game. That's why he is getting a safety Void Ray, which I kind of love. But can we ever save the probes? The Baneling count is pretty high. The Colossus is here, yet all the probes are clumped up. And +2 or no +2, 25 probes will fall. The Colossus shows up, but it's just a little bit too late. That Void Ray, sure, it's gonna do its thing, but not before the 3rd base is dead. All the probes are dead, and honestly, ForJumy is kind of dead.
Yeah, unfortunate there for ForJumy. Commits into a situation that he really shouldn't have, and, well, the game